Hi, I'm Leanne Ely. I'm a nutritionist, a New York Times best-selling author, and some people even say I'm a life coach. I started the Daily Dish Show to share my story, my truth, and my journey to vibrancy, and to inspire others to do the same. Because it's all about grit, perseverance, and finding a way despite the odds. It's about embracing the whole woman, not just the parts that are easy to love, and feeding her heart, mind, body, and soul. But I found that this isn't just my story, it's your story too. It's go time. This is the Daily Dish.
So, hey, there's Terry. Let's get to today's show so I can get back on the road so I can be home and do this from my house tomorrow, that's what I want. That's more than anything. Um, Mark's playing a computerized version, June. He does this, that's part of his thing, I do word things, he does those, so that's who it is. All right, so let's get to this because I think what you're gonna love what this is all about because I think it gives a lot of hope and it gives us an opportunity to see things in a completely different life. Hey, Lucy, good to see you. I'm glad you're here. So a friend of mine is named Ed Milet, if you've ever seen him, and Ed's an interesting guy. He's a big finance guy, made it big, flies around in private planes. He's that kind of guy. He's also a big guy. He works out all the time and super smart and quite the motivational speaker. If you've never heard him, you might want to look him up on YouTube. He looks like a big burly guy that's going to punch your lights out, but he's like a kitty cat. He's soft and sweet. So I want you to just check him out. But one of the quotes that he said that I loved was, "I don't do things based on how I feel. I do things based on who I am." And then that question led to me to thinking about, well, who am I then? And how do I define that? And what makes me who I am? And so as I've thought through 2021 and given it a serious analysis, because that's what you do this time of year is you're getting ready to set yourself up, tee yourself up for the next year. Then what you're going to want to do is, just take an analysis of what does my year look like? What is 2021 all about? What is it that stands out? What were my wins? Where were my losses? And the one thing that kept coming up to me, and this is from doing some thought work with Kara, and I always say her name is Kara Lowenthal. And I know I'm saying her stuff wrong, but she has a thought work process. I've shared with you the ladders and all of that stuff before. And I'm telling you, this to me was everything. And she said that every thought I think doesn't have to be processed, believed, or obeyed. And I think sometimes we get stuck in that of thinking because I've thought it, therefore it's true, therefore this is, this is how this whole thing is, but that isn't necessarily the case. And even so, this is Stephen Hayes that wrote this book, A Liberated Mind, says we have to pivot toward what matters. Pivot toward what matters. And what does that mean? Well, to do that, again, it's back to that whole thing. We got to know where we're starting from, and we have to start with the honest assessment. The honest assessment on isn't just in our own little worlds, but it's also in the world around us. And I think this is going to give kind of a framework to maybe how you're feeling, maybe how you're not doing the very best that you thought you should be doing and whatever else. But let's just talk about this for a minute because I think it's so critically important. And that is, while we've made, all kinds of crazy advances in medicine and in technology and in everything else. I mean, they've got child mortality in the last 20 years that has improved like 40%. Childhood leukemia has been knocked down in the last 50 years. Used to be an 86% mortality rate. That's in half now with children with leukemia. So there's all kinds of advances that have been done. But the thing is, as a result of our own technology, the technology that's propelled us into the internet age and everything else, it's left us overexposed daily, overexposed to daily horror, daily drama, daily judgment, daily too muchness. Am I right? You know I am. And this is that leaves us feeling oftentimes very overwhelmed. And it's not our own lives, it's just what's going on around us. And I think we need to add that into the whole equation of who we are, because it does it does matter. And it threatens our very existence because it puts us in a place of fearfulness. So you remember, a lot of you here, I know, I know I wasn't alone. Did you walk home alone from school? Yes. Were you out playing in outside and your parents didn't even know where you were? You just had to be home by the time the streetlights turned on. Well, today, by today's standards, if you did that, somebody would turn you into CPS, you know, Child Protective Services. But we have these 24-hour news cycles where they're recounting every single horror under the sun, and it's all fear-based. Have you noticed? It is all fear-based, and it's pretty awful. But what happens is this it obliterates our any feelings of safety, and we look at the world through this clouded lens of fear and being scared and thinking that there's the boogeyman behind every bush. And when we compound that reality with the fact that now entertainment is made to duplicate this with reality shows, with all of these, this garbage out there that emotionally and psychologically just absolutely impacts us, we're toast. We have this constant fear bubble around us, and it's on purpose. This is probably, this is what everybody's doing. Everybody's trying to grab the headline. Everybody's trying to get your viewing in there. Everybody's doing this so that they can get viewership, right? But Steve Hayes has a different, an interesting perspective on this whole thing, and says we need to have psychological flexibility. What an interesting concept. So, what does that mean? It means the ability to feel and think with openness, experience the present, move into the direction of what's important to you, all along building habits that support your values and your dreams. Right? Easier said than done, because we're confounded by all the crazy of trying to live our lives according to what it is that we want and the vibrancy that we're trying to ascertain, and yet all of this stuff is going on around us. So sometimes what that means, according to this guy Steve, let's just call him Steve, first name basis, it means that we have to turn toward our suffering, because his whole point is we spend so much time running away from it that we don't get the lesson out of what it is. So rather, we have to look at these things have the power to cause us the most pain are sometimes the things that are going to give us our biggest lesson. And I think that's a profound statement right there. Think about how we do this. We deny that it even exists and pretend that we don't even see it, the elephant in the room. Nope, not gonna address it. And then we self-medicate. We find ourselves maybe even habitually going for something that's gonna self-medicate. And that could run the gamut of different things. We ignore it, run away from it, but we spend our energy doing that instead of turning around and facing it. And I think that's it. So what do? We lean in, we look for the lesson. There's a lesson there. We look for the pain and learn to properly evaluate the fear. And like we talked about when we talk about learning from the fear and to proper evaluating the fear, we have to go back to what we talked about in our last workshop, which I believe was this summer, about the fear fence. Do you remember the fear fence? And the fear fence is just such a small little thing. It's rickety, it's falling apart. The fear fence is bigger in our brain than it is in reality. And that is how we learn to tolerate this stuff, find the lesson, and go forward from it. So the fear fence isn't overwhelming. It's manageable when we understand that it's made up of a lot of old stuff. And when we face it, we notice and see that it's actually a whole lot smaller than we thought it was. And this is the deal. We all have pain and we all have fear. Nobody is walking on this planet without it. And if they say, "Oh, I have no fear and I have no pain," denied it long enough that they don't even know it's there anymore, or that they just, you know, whatever. People, you can check out as much as you want, but you're not going to be able to run away from it. It's still there. So what do we do with all of this? Well, there's a couple of things we need to do. One is to develop a tolerance for it. Seriously, because you can't make it go away. We develop a tolerance for it by putting it into its proper perspective. And that's when we learn to live side by side with pain and with fear. And when we face the pain and look for the lessons, Ed Milet really brilliantly said that as he's going through something and as he's doing something, and Sean Croxton said the same thing, as he's doing something that's harder and pushing on him, he's looking for the pain and looking for the lesson from the pain. What's it trying to teach me? What do I need to know about this? And we work so hard to work away from the pain that we don't ever get to the things that we really truly want. And if we're going to, like Steve Jobs says, put a dent in this universe, then we've got to go into the places that we don't want to go. Well, there's a couple things, like I said, is to develop a tolerance and to also put it in its proper perspective. And also, it's to be curious and ask questions about it. How do you like that one? Listen, I believe this so much with my whole heart. When we start asking questions, then we can figure out what the heck is going on. Maybe not the whole thing, but certainly some of it. So this is the thing that, we have an incredible ability to figure things out. We do. All of us do. We can figure this out. Remember, everything is eminently figure outable. And if you go back to, again, this other logic piece, which is that you are fearfully and wonderfully made, that you're here on purpose and for purpose, you have to, you need to be able to then, therefore, be able to get to the answers that you need. Doesn't it make sense that the creator who created you would give you everything that you need so that you can figure this stuff out? He's not there to just bump you bump you down and keep you in your place and put a thumb on top of your head. It doesn't make any sense. So I think it's the bigger lesson that we're looking for. We all have things that we want to do, that we know that we want to attain, and the goals that we want to have in this life. Do we necessarily get them? No. But when we understand that deep down we're doing a lot of things that are blocking these things, that are making it so that we can't get what it is that we want, we know this already. Deep down inside, we already know that we are doing, every time we sit out to numb out with our phones, or numb out with maybe cigarettes, Julie. And yeah, you should check out our L-glutamine. I mean, it means everything. It wipes out cravings and it will help with that short-term stuff. But when we're trying to do this and trying to get beyond all of this, that's exactly what it is. We understand and know that what we're doing instead of facing stuff is we are going full board into it because we're in the avoiding place. And the avoiding place never ever helps us to figure it out and make things happen for us. So the secret sauce to going beyond that familiar loop and actually getting what you want has to do with learning the lesson, number one, and understanding that our emotions that are involved with them are not something to be avoided as well. They go deep and they go long and they go wide, and they are from who knows when they're from. But all connected to this stuff is procrastination, because when we know better, it doesn't mean we necessarily do better, even though we, should. Sometimes we don't. But that's a protective mechanism so that we don't have to face that stuff. Anyway, told you it was going to be quick today. We got to get back on the road. I appreciate you all. I will see you tomorrow, same bat time, same bat channel. Peace be with you. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for joining me today. You can find me on TikTok for daily tips to help support your most vibrant life. And remember, you are the author of your own story. Until next time.